Welcome back, everybody, to this episode of It's Called Football. And this will be a Copa America quarterfinal breakdown, semifinal preview. The word of this quarterfinals, I'll say before we hop into each of the reactions and recaps, penalties. 3 of the 4 went to penalties. And before we dive into it, I just want to ask you guys quickly. We talked a little bit before the show. Do you like the rule? Copa America through the up in the knockout stage, they're going straight to penalties after 90 minutes, no extra time. The final will be extra time and then penalties. Jason, I'll start with you. You like it? You don't like it?
I'm like 50-50. It makes the games fun after 90s, but like I would still prefer to see another 30 minutes of football. Like that'll give us, you know, more excitement for another 30 minutes. Who knows what can happen in those in extra time. You could get a world class goal, you could get heartbreaks. You could get more. Sorry, there's someone at my door. Yeah, and like with this going straight into the shootouts, it kind of like not necessarily it's still exciting. Um, you just want more action. Like if a game is intense, which some of these haven't been, some have, it gives you more of that. Like, come on, I want more in these 90 instead of just going right into it. But yeah, I still rather see another 30 minutes before the shootouts.
Mm-hmm. Jackson, you're
I'm not on board with it, and because here's why. I think you should get not necessarily a reward, but you should have an advantage if you're a team that wins in the first 90 versus a team that ties. And having a team that just went to extra time playing versus a team that won a full 90 is an advantage for the team that won their game, that actually won their game. They get that advantage. They're a little fresher. That's why I like it when you see extra time added, because I think the team that goes out and wins in their first 90 should be, again, it's not really a reward, but should have maybe a bit more of an advantage versus a team that doesn't do that. I like to see that. And obviously, from a more traditional standpoint, that's just kind of how the game has been played ever since our age, our generation has watched it. Because I wasn't alive to see Golden Goal in the Euros. I don't know what that world was like. This is the world that I've known. I like seeing extra time more. Again, it gives an advantage to a team that goes and wins in the full 90 versus a team that can maybe just hold on defensively and just keep playing it out for another 30. You have an advantage over them. And I think extra time's exciting too. I know people all want penalty kicks as exciting and all this stuff. I'd rather see a game decided on the field than penalty kicks, to be completely honest. Penalty kicks are cruel. I'd rather just see it decided when the guys are actually playing the game versus doing penalty kicks.
Yep, I'm with you both, and it's the penalties, kind of like what you're saying, Jackson. It's a little bit of luck.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, you can have one guy who's feeling the pressure, and that can be the whole difference maker. You can have a goalkeeper, like in some of these, who just steps up and makes a couple saves and then it's done. You also never know what's going to happen in extra time. Someone could get a red card. Someone could score an early goal, and then the intensity just gets up even more. It's one of those things that you don't know what's going to happen in extra time. Someone might be tired and pull a muscle for running back and get beat out that way. It's just more fun having an extra 30 minutes. And like the point, Jackson, you also made, it's an advantage having not gone to extra time, having won in regular time, kind of play less than an extra 30 minutes is exhausting, especially at this level when you've already played 90 and played out through this entire tournament. So one of those things, but we will hop into the first quarterfinal that took place, Argentina and Ecuador. Sure enough, this one went to penalties, and Ecuador really almost didn't get there. It was a 91st minute goal from Kevin Rodriguez to get it equal after Lautaro Martinez scored early on in the first half. Enter Valencia had a penalty missed in regulation, so that was another turn of this, and then the penalty shootout. We talked about it before again on this show started. Jason, I'll come to you first. Lionel Messi kicks us off with penalties. What the hell was that?
And like even at the World Cup, he's been slow, taking it. But at the end, he'll shoot in the bottom left corner, bottom right, down the middle. But hitting the crossbar, something I never thought I'd see. Yeah, he's taking it cool, nonchalant. He's not the young guy. He's not the younger version of himself or fast run up. But missing it, and you're the heart of the team. Everybody knows you. Everyone in that stadium is there for you for the most part, and you're just gonna just try to chip it, I guess, over the keeper, and you just miss. Of all players in the world, it's crazy. It's crazy. And Ecuador, I remember, yeah, they got the goal in stoppage time, and they were attacking really well in the rest of that stoppage time. So they had the opportunity to go for the win there. But obviously, my goalkeeper, Emi Martinez, Aston Villa fan here. Emi Martinez showing once again, he's one of the best keepers in the world. My bias says he is. And I seen a stat that he says in penalty shootouts with Argentina, he has a 50% save percentage. So, almost any advantage going into shootouts, as we just mentioned, after the 90, there's a good chance. There's more than likely Argentina is going to have the advantage, with their quality of players shooting the ball and with Emi having such a good success saving them. But yeah, it's crazy. Even though Argentina still seems the favorite to win this whole tournament, just their performances haven't been, what we were expecting, like from their performances at the World Cup. But yeah, they should be able to win.
Maybe Jackson, your thoughts on this one and the penalty shootout as well as the regular match?
Well, first of all, Messi tried to channel his inner Zidane with that. And if he pulled it off, fair play. That's the problem with trying to do a Panenka. You just get a little bit too much on it, hits the crossbar, goes over, stuff like that. So I've never really liked it when players take those kinds of penalty kicks. I think, and also if a keeper just moves a little bit but doesn't fully commit, it's such an easy save to make. Mm-hmm. I've never been a fan of that in general. If you pull it off and you pull it off with the height that Messi was going for, it is ballsy and it is impressive. But when you don't pull it off, you put yourself and your team in a very, very difficult situation. That's why Argentina's goated in penalty shootouts because despite Messi missing that first kick, they still won. Everyone else made one. Martinez did what he had to do. That's incredible what they can do in penalty kicks. They were unbeatable in penalty kicks because of who they have in between the sticks. He's a phenomenal keeper when it comes to penalties. And he even set off Valencia in the regular time when he hit the post on that one PK. He's just so hard to beat on those. So if any other Argentina games in the rest of the tournament go to PKs, you have to bet on them because even with Messi missing, they still found a way to win, which I think is remarkable. Ecuador played better than I thought they would. The fact that they were able to find an equalizer despite being down and doing it in the 92nd minute is a testament to them. And I find this interesting. I think they're still firing their coach despite that. Isn't that crazy? But they showed fight. They showed passion. And Argentina, despite not looking maybe as confident as they'd like to have looked, they got it done. And at the end of the day, that's what matters. So it's what England's doing in the Euros. That's what other teams have done in the past to get through. You have a game where you don't necessarily play as well. Your star player misses their first penalty kick in the shootout. You still find a way to get through. That's all you need to do. So Argentina did take care of business in that one. I still think they're the overall favorites to win this tournament. They won every group stage game that they played in. Lautaro Martinez has looked unbelievably good this tournament. Even if he didn't get a goal in that last one. Oh, wait, he did. I don't know why I just spaced on that. He did get the goal. Well, again, even better. But, I still like this Argentina team. Despite kind of a hiccup in this one, they still found a way to get over that hill and get to the semifinals.
No, absolutely. They did just enough. And this is one where, as we were talking about earlier, had this gone to extra time, I would have probably backed Ecuador to get as the more likely to get a winner. Wasn't the case. Goes to penalties, and obviously Enner Valencia having his penalty go off the post in the 62nd minute. I wonder if that had something sitting in the back of the Ecuadorians' first two shooters' minds when they came up and had both of them saved. They didn't look like very good penalties. They weren't very well taken. Props to Martinez for getting across and getting the saves both times. but it looked like they were feeling the pressure of having already missed one. And hey, had Valencia not missed and done what we've seen him do time and time again, is put the ball away, we'd be talking about an Ecuador in the semifinals and Argentina going home. Things with Copa America we love to see at times is it's just chaotic. You never know what team's going to step up, but Argentina got it done. Great penalties from Alvarez, McAllister, Montiel, and Otamendi being a center back and taking the final one. I was a little surprised by that.
Mm-hmm. Hey, but a lot of those experienced players are more composed in situations like that. That's the younger guy. Obviously, there are exceptions. Like I think Cole Palmer showed his moxie. But if you can get an experienced center back taking a penalty kick, more often than not, I feel like they're going to score it in a situation like that. I'd rather have that experience doing it and buried it. So,
oh yeah, and I mean they had another defender in Montiel who subbed on in the 90th minute, more or less just to take the final penalties.
Well, he scored. He's the reason he scored the winning kick in 2022.
Yep. But at the same time, he did come on, and a minute later, or I guess he came on right after Ecuador scored the equalizer. So yeah, right on for penalties. But Argentina got it done. It was ugly. Penalties were not great, but did what they had to do. And now we'll face the winner of the second quarterfinal that we'll be talking about, Venezuela and Canada. Oh, Jesse Marsch. I bet the U.S. national team wishes they had a manager like him at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this. Canada, up until this game, got through because two teams got red cards. I still maintain that. I don't think they would have gone through. But they did, and I feel like they kind of, again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Jesse Marsch in Canada and what they did. But they're playing Venezuela, who, again, they're actually doing all right now in World Cup qualifiers. They did well in this tournament. But if you could have told Canada that you can get through and play Venezuela in the quarterfinals, take that any day. That's a game they can actually win. It's a game they did win. They had chances as well. You know, it wasn't just like they skated by; like they genuinely had chances even after the Schaffelberg goal. There's a game that they would have liked on paper, and they did what they needed to do and got the win. So I'm not trying to take anything away from Jesse Marsch in Canada. I think he's done a fantastic job to only be in charge of team for 6 games. You get a draw with France heading into this, and then you get out of your group in the Copa America. You beat Venezuela. Now you're playing Argentina again. Fair play. This is just a point. I think they have gone about as lucky of a break to get here as they could have. And I'm pissed off about it because I feel like some of that luck could have gone to the U.S. And I'm really mad at the soccer gods for that because it feels like everything's kind of fallen in Canada's way. But they did what they needed to do in this game. They got the early goal through Schaffelberg, he's really impressed me this tournament. He has been very good in a game where Tejan Buchanan's not playing. He's not going to play the rest of the tournament. He's injured. Schaffelberg got a goal. He got it early, and he looked dangerous throughout. Mm-hmm. Canada, obviously, Rondon scored that goal. I don't know what the hell Crepeau was doing. He wanted that high. He's been – I think Jason talked about it before and how good he's been when we did the last video. He made a mistake. He came out way too early, and Rondon is a baller. People forget this. He was a baller in the Prem. He's a baller still. What a freaking goal, man. To score that, it's ballsy, too, because he rifled that up in the air, got it on the bounce. Great goal. At that point, I don't know what you guys were thinking. I thought Venezuela would pull it out. I really thought the momentum had started to shift. I felt more confident in them. Comes to penalty kicks, though. You do what you got to do. I mean, this was not a great shootout. At 3-4, I think, what was it? Venezuela missed 3, Canada missed 2. Got it done. I think Liam Miller just smashes over like 100 miles over the crossbar, too. Like, these were not great penalty kicks. It was an absolutely diabolical shootout, to be completely honest. But Canada got it done. They've got that Canadian spirit in them. They've got that CONCACAF spirit in them. Go Maple Leafs, but I'm not, again, going back to this, I think they've gotten extremely lucky to get here. Just how things have fallen with teams getting red cards and the draw they got in the quarterfinals. I don't expect a lot more from them, but fair play to Jesse Marsch and Canada for getting this far. They did what they needed to do. I think Schaffelberg is going to get a move. I think Moise Bambito, the center back for them, is already basically confirmed to be moving to Lyon. in France. But some of these Canadian players are really staking claims for themselves in this national team heading forward, making a name for themselves. And I think this is if you're anyone in CONCACAF right now and you're most excited about 2026, it's got to be Canada because you're showing serious progress no matter what happens in this next game because you just beat Venezuela in the quarterfinals. And it realistically doesn't get any better than this for a Canadian soccer fan.
No, not at all. Jason, what are your thoughts on this one?
I agree with Jackson that Jesse Marsh he's had it easy, but this game Canada made it harder on themselves. I gave Crepeau props on the last episode, and he just made a silly mistake. I don't know why he was that far out, and they could have had it done in the 90, but had to go to the shootouts. But like you said, Schafferberg, he's a difference maker for the team because they started Liam Miller in the first group stage match. And then even when Schaffelberg came on during the first match against Argentina, he proved to be the difference maker. The attack for Canada was working a lot better with him down on the left side. Venezuela, even though they beat Mexico, they looked good. Jackson said, yeah, once they scored, they looked like they had the momentum on their side. Everything was going their way, but unfortunately, penalties after 90 minutes is gonna really hurt. What sucks is I was watching the penalty kicks, but my power went out. So I do not know what happened until I watched the replays. But yeah, I know the penalty kicks went long, and they weren't good penalties either. But it sucks. It sucks not watching it. But I had a feeling that Canada heading in was gonna win. If I remember correctly, Crepeau he did get a save, and the rest were misses. So shout out Crepeau. For doing well, but yeah, I can't say much about the penalty kicks because it sucks. It was literally the beginning, first kick, power went off. So I'm like, and the power didn't go on until after Canada won. So it sucks, but yeah, Canada they did put up not a decent fight, but they were there with Argentina in the group stage match. They lost. They weren't gonna win. I still don't see them winning against Argentina, but if they can put on a fight, they can make it at least interesting. And with heading into penalty kicks now, after the 90 minutes in the knockout round, they could football magic will happen, and they could have an upset brewing on the way.
Oh, yeah, absolutely, and we'll get into that one in a little bit. But I just want to say, Canada should have been up about 3-0 in this game. The amount of chances they had catching Venezuela on the break, 2-on-1s, 3-on-1s, somehow they didn't get it done. And got to give props to Rafael Romo. He stepped up, had a couple big saves, but also just some awful attacking from Canada. Trying to make the right pass, it's far too late. The ball goes behind the guy. I can think there's a time Schaffelberg probably should have played the ball across, or it was vice versa. I know he was involved in just a terrible pass that was easily picked up by the Venezuelan defender chasing back. All that aside, they got it done in penalties. Not pretty, but you don't need to be pretty to advance on in a tournament that you really had neither of these teams, I think, had much hope coming into it. I didn't think either would get out of the group stage. I think we were all on board with Venezuela. I think you guys may have had Canada getting out, but nonetheless, that's what happened. They got through. On to Argentina.
Yeah, you just brought up a good point, though. This Canadian attack has not looked good at all. And this is not just at this game. This has been throughout the thing. Jonathan David has only scored the one. I feel like he should have scored multiple others. He's had very good chances. Kyle Larin has been basically non-existent, And I will say this: the guy they bring on for him, Tani, I think his name's Aluwasi. I'm struggling with it, but he looks lively, but he just can't finish. He just can't get it on target. He had one with the left foot that I remember he barely rifled over. He's always looking active, but he just can't score. They've gone, I think, like you said, it could have been 3-0 because they had multiple chances where sure Venezuela's attacking all these guys forward, and Canada broke, and they've got so much pace, and they look so dangerous on the counter initially, but that final ball and that final finish just wasn't there. And again, it's not just a this game thing. This has been a symptom of this Canada team while they're here, which is another reason why I think they're lucky to get through. It's not like they've been playing particularly lights out. And if they are going to want to maybe pull off an upset, we'll talk about this in a second. This has to change, but I think you brought up an excellent point, and that's their biggest weakness is they get these chances. Even against Argentina in that first game, they were getting chances, but they're not bearing that. And with someone as good as Jonathan David, with someone who has talent like Kyle Larin, he can finish. Just not putting the ball away, that is definitely a real concern.
It is for sure, and like you said, we'll touch on Canada and Argentina in a second, but before we do that, we're going to discuss the one quarterfinal. This might be a very quick discussion. The one quarterfinal that didn't go to penalties. Colombia, Panama. 5-0 Colombia. Don't know what's really need to be said. James Rodriguez is him at the moment. Through this tournament, even in this last game, he had 2 goals and an assist, or a goal and 2 assists. He was outstanding. He's got about 4 or 5 assists now. Now has finally his first goal. But Jackson, I'll come to you first. What did you think of this Colombia team? And I know it's Panama, and they really probably shouldn't have gotten into this knockout stage, but they did. Colombia's a different breed.
Oh, they're looking good, and I've been singing Colombia's praises from moment one heading into this. I'm like, this team looks good. And I expected this to happen in this game. I didn't know it would be 5. I thought it'd maybe be 3 or 4. It was 5. It sounds about right realistically when you look at the talent this Colombia team has. Not just the talent, because other teams probably have on paper more talented players playing on better teams, but the way they play, they are just so good. And they can attack, man. If you give them a chance, they will bury you. We saw them put up 5 against the U.S. and put up 5 against Panama. Not really a lot else to say except that this Colombia team is good, and they proved it in this game. I think they had 5 different goal scorers as well, which is impressive because you're getting goals from 5 different people rather than just one single source. Uruguay is going to have a tough time against this team. Anyone's going to have a tough time against this team. They look good. Still on this Colombia hype train because they didn't just get by this Panama team. Panama team that was very lucky to get through to the quarterfinals. Again, I'm a bitter U.S. fan, but realistically, you can't look at this and say that they didn't get lucky getting there. And I don't. They're going to be more than content getting to where they were. But yeah, they just didn't show up at all. Colombia saw that and took full advantage. They're good, man. There's really no other way to say this. I could keep talking on and on and on, but really what it comes down to is this Colombian team is damn good. They know how to attack. They've got a pretty good back line going as well right now. They're just dangerous.
Jason?
When James Rodriguez puts on the Colombia shirt, he plays for it's Mexico, but he plays for the badge. He plays for his country. And I really like it because James the past few years, he was in the Greek league. I think he's in Brazil now. He was bouncing all over the place, and to see him, this is his true, not a true potential, but like he's showing the mark, these are like the glimpses of what he could have been. I guess full potential, and I looked it up just right now. He has in this Copa America, he has 5 assists, and he's the leading. I think the next one would be 2 assists. So he's right there for his country. And then it's against Panama. We know what they can do, but again, like Jackson said, Colombia this tournament has been. Everyone's been thinking Brazil, Argentina, Uruguay, but it seems like if Colombia can keep up these performances, they can sneak out. They can sneak it and win this whole thing.
Yeah, 100% with you guys both on that aspect of Colombia is looking like the best team in this tournament. 5 goal scorers. That's impressive. Doesn't matter who you're playing against. It's getting all over the place. Sure, 2 of them are penalties, but you got to do what you got to do, and that's a lot. And anytime a penalty is given, for the most part, it's because they forced the defender into a bad position and had to make a last-second ditch to try and get the ball away and ends up fouling. I don't really have any criticisms of this Colombia team so far. They didn't look great against Brazil, but they needed a point to get by. I think it's surprising. I was looking at the betting odds not too long ago. Colombia has the 3rd best odds to still win the Copa America.
Mm-hmm.
I find that very interesting considering everything we've been seeing on the pitch and been talking about on the show. We'll see. We'll see what happens when they come up against Uruguay, who will hop into that game right now because that one was dire. That was the equivalent of we just finished up our Euro semifinal podcast and the recap of the quarterfinals. But we talked about Portugal and France being absolutely tedious for 90 minutes, then another 30 there. This is one where I'm glad we didn't have the extra 30. Brazil and Uruguay, 0-0. Whole lot of nothing really happened in the 90 minutes. There was what? 4 total shots on target, goes to penalties. Uruguay gets it done. And they held on with 10 men. I will also put that out there. Jason, I'll come to you first. What did you kind of think of this one? Were you surprised that Uruguay needed penalties the way they've been looking so far?
I really did because Brazil, as we mentioned, they weren't looking like the team they're meant to be. And Uruguay, we all thought because of the way they were playing in the group stage that they would take out Brazil at least after the 90 minutes or in a close matchup. But this was completely different than what everybody thought. It was just another snooze fest. As I mentioned in the I did Euros episode, I like seeing hype trains die. Hendrick played 90 minutes. Stats weren't good. I believe his only completed pass was at the kickoff. I'm just surprised that Uruguay needed the penalties because, as you mentioned, as James, Darwin Núñez always turns into a different player when he wears the Uruguay badge as well. And I just don't see. Maybe it was just another fluke game for them, but I don't see them if they continue the performances as we mentioned with France and the Dutch. I don't see them winning, and they're facing Colombia. Colombia looks hot. Let's just hope we get a good matchup and we get a good match, a good matchup and good performances. What I meant to say.
And Jackson.
Yeah, it wasn't great from either team, but I will give Uruguay credit here. Sure, they didn't look maybe as good as some people would have thought they could have looked, but you're playing Brazil in a Copa America quarterfinal. And I know this isn't the Brazil team of a few years ago even. Like, this is a Brazil team definitely in transition, but it's Brazil. They've just got ghosts playing on that field alongside them. You see they've got, Pele, they've got all these players, even Neymar, who are playing alongside him even if they're not physically there. That's just kind of the essence Brazil has. Whenever you play them, you're playing ghosts. You're playing teams that were because it's Brazil, and they're always going to be good. Their fans are always going to be there. It's always going to be a difficult game. So Uruguay had to face that, and then they had to face it down a guy for the final, what was it, like 16 minutes in regular time because Nandez got a red card, so you're right back, gets a red card. You're playing down a guy to Brazil, and he found a way to get it 0-0, take it a shootout, where Uruguay obviously felt confident because they had 2 chances to win it, and they got it done. From a Brazil perspective, this ends a completely diabolical, underperforming tournament where Vinny is probably about as exciting as it gets. There's not a whole lot else. Hendrick's exciting, don't get me wrong, but he's young, he's 17, he's not there yet. The fact that you're having a 17-year-old in this day and age starting who's not Lamine Yamal is probably a bad sign. Hendrick is very good, does well in the Brazilian league, but realistically, if you're Brazil, you'd hope that you have someone already there who can be a starting striker who's already an elite player. And this was a problem they had in 2014 at the World Cup. They didn't really have that great of a striker. They didn't have an elite striker. I forget who their striker even was at that point. I think his name was Fred off the bench. I think I remember that correctly. They just didn't really have anyone, but that team still got to the semifinals of a World Cup, even though it was at home. But this Brazil team kind of has that same problem where you don't really have a goal scorer like that playing as a striker. And I know the way soccer is moved now is a lot of those players who are goal scorers or technical end up playing on the wing, playing different positions. Like, I get that. But when you think about good teams that win, you've got good strikers. You've got people who can score goals. Like Argentina right now, Lautaro Martinez is unstoppable. He's a striker. He's been banging in goals. So Brazil not having that element, I think, has been a big problem, and it showed up in a game like this where you really could have used that versus a very inexperienced. Now, don't get me wrong. I think in a few years, Endrick's going to be a very, very good player, possibly world class, but he's not there yet. And I think that was a big problem they had. And overall, when you don't have Vinny, when a Brazil team like this doesn't have Vinny, you're probably going to struggle to win. And I think I forget which one you said it. I'm kind of surprised Uruguay didn't win in regular time. I thought they would have. Obviously, the red card didn't help a lot, but that was 74 minutes into the game. But yeah, from a Brazil perspective, this is like the equivalent to the U.S. not getting out of the group. This is probably worse for a Brazil team, I think, just the overall tournament. Because when you're Brazil, you expect the best. You didn't get that, and you just lost in penalty kicks to a 10-man Uruguay team. It's definitely a moment where Brazil is going to have to take a step back and realize we got to figure this out. Recognize as well that you're a team in transition. But again, they're missing key pieces right now, and that really showed throughout the tournament, and that's why they're out.
Yep, absolutely. And I mean, you brought up the forward attack of they had in 2014. I was doing a little bit of research into that, and it's not necessarily the players they had, but it's still the exact same formation that they're playing at this Copa America that they did at the 2014 World Cup 10 years ago. It's still the 4-2-3-1. Don't know if it's just that's what they've been told to play or that's how they play, raise their players up to play. But that's where it's an issue, especially when a guy like Vinny Jr. is suspended for this game. And you need to, I mean, look at England. I'll say them for an example. You play the same formation. Someone gets suspended. You change things to fit the players you have. Brazil didn't change anything formation-wise, and they threw in a 17-year-old instead, and it didn't work out. They've looked good in one game this tournament. It was a 4-1 thrashing of Paraguay. Paraguay also got beat by everybody they played in this group stage. That's not surprising. They scored one other goal, and that was a free kick from Rafinha. They do not look good this tournament, and I think it's needed something to change, and maybe this is where they wish they had Neymar healthy and Neymar playing, just to bring a little bit of consistency, a little bit more flair. Sure, he's getting older and always the injury prone, but it's one of those things. And that's where I think Brazil kind of got beat was on the managerial side, especially going into the penalties. So I want to say it was a clip I saw recently since that it was Marcelo Bielsa was talking with his Uruguay squad, going through all these different things. It looked like where Brazil was kind of there, just like, okay, we're going to go take it, get on and go home with it. Didn't happen. Missed two. Uruguay's penalties, some of those were superb.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to defend it. Uruguay got it done. On to the semifinals. These will be fun. On that note, we will go into the first semifinal that takes place Tuesday night at 8 o'clock p.m. Eastern time. Yep, 8 o'clock Eastern. Argentina, Canada, the rematch there. Argentina won the first one 2-0, I believe. Wow. Jackson, I'll go to you first. What are you expecting from this one?
Well, just to get this out of the way, Argentina should win this game, and I think they will win this game. I think Canada is going to be better in this game than they were the first game because obviously you've already played them, and you're going to know what to expect a little bit more. You don't have the nerves of it being the first game of the tournament and like, oh, if we lose by this much, how's that going to affect our chance? Yeah, on the other games, now it's just a soccer game. You've already made it to the stage Canada's never been in. Probably didn't even dream about really getting here unless you're with the team. So there's going to be less nerves, and they can just go out there and play a little bit more. So I think you're going to see a better Canada team. In the first game, they did create chances. They had opportunities. Obviously, not as many as Argentina, but they did have their chances. So I think they'll get chances in this one. But at the end of the day, Argentina's Argentina. They have a very good team. And we talked about this on our Euro show about how Ronaldo doesn't really seem to be helping this new generation of Portugal players move into the future. It feels like Messi is doing a better job of that with this Argentina team. You're seeing all these other players stepping up, including attacking players who are stepping up. And Messi hasn't scored yet, and he missed his penalty kick. Even with that, they still found a way to win. So I think that's a very good sign for this Argentina team. Obviously, Argentina team in the future. They look like they're just a little bit more complete than I would have expected them to be at this point. And I still thought they'd win the tournament. But they just look like they're getting answers from everywhere. Lautaro Martinez has been phenomenal. I expect him to get a goal in this game as well. I expect him to show up defensively. I think we'll win 2-0 again. I think it is closer in terms of Canada getting more chances and looking more dangerous, and Argentina maybe getting less chances. They got the first game, but I think they'll be a little bit more clinical with their chances in this when they get to this. And I don't see Canada scoring realistically. So I'm going 2-0.
Like it, Jason.
Same thing. Yeah. Even though I expect Canada to put a better fight, I still see Argentina winning because it's just Argentina. You know, they outclass every player in every position. They outclass, maybe besides Davies, but even that's debatable, I guess you can say. But Argentina, yeah, before we started, when we did the Copa America preview before the start of the tournament, most of us had Argentina winning the thing. And I see the same thing. Canada, you still have Jesse Marsh. Again, attack has been pretty lackluster, even though Schaffelberg has been providing signs of life. But at the end of the day, it's Argentina. You have the greatest player in the world on your team, even though he hasn't been performing well. When he does it, the rest of the team does. Like you said, Jackson said, Lautaro Martinez, he seems to be in the form of his life with country and club. And I just don't see Canada putting up a goal. I don't see them doing much. Like I said, putting up a fight, they get 1-2 chances. But besides that, Argentina is going to outclass them every step of the way.
Yep. Making it 3-for-3. I think Argentina does win this one relatively comfortably. I'm going to say 2-0, but I could see this being like a 1-0, but Canada doesn't really get many chances. Argentina just only finds the back of the net once. I want to see one thing. And Jackson, you talked about this earlier when we were recapping the Canada-Venezuela game, their lack of cunningness moving forward. Alphonso Davies, he's been playing left back. We've seen him always do that with club, but for country, it always seems like he's more on the wings moving forward. I haven't seen him go forward nearly as much this tournament. In a game where you are a big underdog and no one really expects you to win, you have to take chances. And that's a risk I would love to see, is get him moving forward, maybe put him in that wing midfield kind of area that we're seeing Bukayo Saka and Kieran Trippier play in the last match for England, where you have more of an attacking responsibility than just sitting back. Obviously, against Venezuela, it was tough because Venezuela was going forward and all the time, and they were just trying to counter. But having a guy like Alphonso Davies who can lead that counterattack with his pace, and he's one of the best goal scorers Canada has, just saying something for being a left back on paper. I would love to see some risk like that from Jesse Marsh in Canada, because otherwise I don't see where a goal is coming from. Schaffelberg can only do so much. That's about it.
That's not a bad shout, to be completely honest. What you got to do at that point is move Richie Laryea, to left back, and then you have Davies. Now, I don't think Jesse Marsh is going to be that adventurous. Which, if anyone would, to be fair, it might be Jesse Marsh if he wants him to just press like a madman the whole time. He might be willing to do that and say, you know what, this is our only shot. I don't think he'll do it, but I like the point you're making because you have that pace running at you. It is going to be dangerous for Argentina because they're going to have to worry about that on the counter at all times because Fonzie, when he gets going, it's pretty hard to stop. You got to get multiple guys on him. And obviously that's a risk because on that right wing, you could have Di Maria, you have Messi probably going out there a little bit because he's going to be more keen to cut into his right foot. So maybe he'll end up, left foot. So maybe he'll end up on that side a little bit, on that more right-handed side of attack for Argentina. So that means Laryea would have to deal with that. Di Maria, whoever else they put out there. So you got to determine if you really want that to happen. And I don't think Marsh is going to be willing to risk it. But like you said, that might be their best chance to get a goal, is to have someone of Davies' attacking ability. Because he's got great attacking ability. Don't get me wrong, phenomenal defender. And this doesn't mean he can't help defend. Like, if he does do this, he'd have to come back and help defend as well. But if you leave him a little bit higher, like you said, that might be their best chance. That's a good shout, and that's something I'd like to see as well.
Yeah, I'll also put it out there that if Canada does want to do something, they need to score early and be the first ones to score.
They need to be the first to score. Yeah.
That's only happened twice since September of 2023 against Argentina. Uruguay scored first in a World Cup qualifier, won that one 2-0. And Costa Rica scored first in a friendly with Argentina back in March. Lost that 3-1. So at the end of the day, it's a friendly. Doesn't matter all that much. Oh, and I guess Guatemala did, but that was an own goal.
Really?
Yeah, Guatemala went up 1-0, lost 4-1. But that's the thing. This Argentina team is against legitimate competition. Nothing against Costa Rica, nothing against Guatemala, but they're not to the same levels, even just as far as CONCACAF is concerned, as Canada. We've seen Canada's defense has managed to hold on. Sure, they played against 10 men sometimes and all that. And the only goal they gave up against Venezuela was a goalkeeper error and a beautiful lob. But if they can get out, score early, and hold the Argentinian attack and just kind of sit back, park the bus, make it grimy, that's their best chance, I think.
Yeah. And if you do push Davies forward early and you get that first goal, you can move him on back. And you can either play a 5-back for a bit if you want, or you can simply sub off like a Larea and bring on a Schaufelberg if you want him, or if you'd rather have Liam Miller. Like, that's also an option as well. Like, you don't just have to keep him up there. If you do find that first goal, move him on back and try to play it out. Because at that point, even if you tie 1-1, you go to penalty kicks and you got just about as good a shot as you can get. So, no, I like that call from you, Jerry. I don't think he'll do it, but I think that's a great call.
I think that might be one of the issues with Canada is we're saying like, okay, they need to do this, this, and this for them to win. Argentina, as we've all said already, we know what they need to do. They know what they need to do. Canada knows what Argentina is going to come out and do. I don't think they can stop it. No. Argentina in the final seems inevitable at this point. Now the other semifinal, I have honestly no idea who's coming out of this. Colombia, Uruguay. In my opinion, the two teams that have looked the best so far in this tournament, especially Colombia. I've been back in Uruguay since the beginning. I think, Jackson, you've been back in Colombia. Yeah. This has been going to be a feisty match. Jason, I'll let you kick us off on this one.
I like how Colombia's been playing. Yeah, winning 5-0 against Panama. They look like one of the better teams heading into out of these four, heading into the next games. Uruguay, everyone had them as one of the three options, clear options. But now that Brazil, they beat Brazil, a talented, stacked team, even though they aren't performing well together, I guess you can say. I see, even though I like James, I see Uruguay putting away. I see now Darwin, he's going to come back. He's going to play for the badge. I see him getting 2 goals. I see this a close matchup. I see this 2-1, 3-2. I see a high-scoring game. Colombia, I see Cordoba getting another goal, maybe another James assist for sure. But I see this match being high intense, like compared to other Euro games that we previewed. But I just being a high intense matchup. Colombia, they're going to be there, but I just don't see them winning it. I think, again, I mentioned I like seeing hype train stop. Even though I love James, I would wish the best for his career. I think that Colombia hype train is going to end this semifinal matchup, and they go on to the final.
Jackson, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I've been back in Colombia since before this started, so that's not going to change. In this game, I do like Uruguay, just as a team overall, and if it was against anyone else, I'd be picking them. It's going to be interesting to see what they do now that Nandez got that red card. I think realistically, you slide Araujo over there. It's a position he's played with Barca before. That right back, you move Jimenez in to the center back spot. I wonder if that's what they'll do, or possibly, I guess they could go with someone else. I don't know who it would be. Maybe I don't know. I think if I was a manager, that's what I would do. Granted, he's a little bit smarter when it comes to the game than I am, so I'm going to trust whatever he does and expect that it'll produce great results for him. I'm going to still stick with Colombia despite liking what Uruguay has. Again, Uruguay's back line I think is really strong. The midfield's really strong, and Nunez, when he plays for him, is incredibly strong. But I think Colombia plays a little bit better as a team, and they've got, let's face it, no one's beaten them in nearly 30 games, and it's happening for a reason. The team loves playing for each other, and when they play for Colombia, they play well. James Rodriguez, as Jason had said, plays like a different man when he plays for Colombia. When he puts on the jersey, he's unbelievable. And that's kind of what a lot of these dudes are doing. They're really showing up and showing out for their country. And what I like to see with this Colombia team, too, is when you look at their roster, it's not completely flashy, like you see with some of these other teams in terms of playing for this European team or this European team. I mean, James Rodriguez is playing in Brazil, I want to say with Sao Paulo right now, and he's still kicking ass. They're just playing well together, and I think that's going to continue in this. They've shown that if a team gives them an opening, they will counter it and they will score. They did it against the U.S. 5 times, took care of Panama like it was nothing, and they did in the group stage, even though they tied Brazil. But like you said, they were already through at that point, and to win the group, they just needed a draw, And they got the draw, and they still were creating chances, despite obviously not having that same level of we need to make sure we take care of business, kind of like Brazil had at that point. So even in that game, they still did what they needed to do. I think heading into this, it's hard for me to go against Colombia with how they've been playing because they've answered every call that they've gotten so far, and they've performed with flying colors at this tournament. I'm going to back them. I'm going to go 2-1. I think it's a good game. I think these two teams are pretty even. I just think Colombia is going to have a little bit extra to get it through.
Yeah, I can see this going very much both ways. I'm going to lean probably Uruguay, just backing the pick I made earlier. And I think managerial-wise, Bielsa will be able to adjust a little better if need be. We look at the last 3 times these teams have played. Copa Americas, 2021 quarterfinals, 0-0, Colombia wins on penalties. Then the World Cup qualifying in 2021 for the 2022 World Cup, finished 0-0. Not overly an exciting match from what I can remember, but it was enough that at the end, Uruguay advanced, Colombia didn't to the 22 World Cup. Then they played more recently for 26 World Cup qualifying. It was a 91st minute goal from Darwin Nunez to make it 2-2 and get them each a point. These two teams have a very feisty history, and I think that will continue here. I think this is going to be the best match of the tournament, the 2 best teams. I think the winner of this, like we said with France or Spain and Germany, I think the winner of this will win the whole thing. I think they're both better than Argentina, better than Canada. But it's what you said, Jackson. How is Uruguay going to adjust to the red card to Nandez? Because that's a very difficult position to fill, that right back, especially considering the attacking threats. Colombia scored 14 goals in this competition. They've only allowed 2. Uruguay has only allowed 1, scoring 9. But that's the thing. Now you're missing one of those key back 4. Obviously, you still have Oliveira back there. But it's a little suspect. I just think at the end of the day, it's going to be one of those things that, Jason, you said it, Darwin Nunez might actually step up here. This is a time for him to rewrite his legacy. It's been so rough with Liverpool, missing chance after chance after chance. Didn't take a shot in the penalties because he came off as a sub. Something's got to give for him. He has 2 goals, so he's 1 goal so far in this Copa America, or 2 goals so far in this Copa America. I can see him making it a 3rd, and I'm going to back Uruguay. I think it'll be 2-1 with a very late winner.
Hey, whoever plays that right back spot too, they're going to have to put up with Diaz.
Yeah, and that's
the kicker.
Going to be a nightmare. That's the thing. Like, I say 2-1. I could very easily see this going 2-1 to Colombia.
I could see it going anyway.
Yeah.
Because these teams, like you said, I think whoever wins this realistically should win the tournament because Argentina obviously got messy, but they haven't looked – I mean, they've won their games, don't get me wrong, but they haven't really played anyone, and they haven't looked as good as they should with who they have, despite finding ways to get it done. Whoever wins this got through the gauntlet. They got through Brazil, either Uruguay or Colombia. They got through the hardest basically path that they could go through. So I agree. We could go either way, but whoever wins this, as you said earlier, it's got to be – they won't be a betting man favorite because Messi's on the other team. But, if it wasn't all just people throwing money on Argentina like crazy because of Messi, I think one of these teams should be a man's favorite.
Oh, agreed. Jason, I'll come to you first. Any final thoughts on either of these 2 semifinals before we wrap it up?
compared to the Euros, I feel like these two games should actually be. Even though we have Argentina winning, I still see both these matchups being really good. I don't see either of them being a snooze fest. Um, Again, we just want good football, and we hope we get it. Hopefully, no penalties after 90.
Mhm.
But at the end of the day, I still these being good matchups, and it'll be top quality footy.
Absolutely, Jackson.
I'm more excited for this than the Euros. When South American football comes to a point where you got to go and win, where it really matters, it gets fun. I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, absolutely. It's going to be a blast. 3 Comedy Bowl teams, 1 CONCACAF team. And if we had to pick one before the tournament started, I don't think any one of us would have picked Canada.
Nope.
Great North is stepping up. We'll see who gets it done in these 2 semifinals. Argentina, Canada, Tuesday night. Colombia, Uruguay, Wednesday night. We can't wait for it. Neither can you guys. Make sure you watch it. Make sure you keep an eye out on this episode and our Euro podcast. Make sure you subscribe to the Vendetta Sports Media YouTube channel so you don't miss any of our shows or any of our colleague shows. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you for the final.